You guys want to get into the rest of the fantasy forecast, or you got some? You
Very
look like you
much.
were getting some breaking news, or no?
Nope. Just
All right, let's get in.
Fantasy Forecast.
Do you think that the Saints turn their season around?
No.
I
I think what helps the Saints do good is having the Atlanta Falcons fumble the ball all over the place and let kicks go backwards into their end zone.
I like it when they do good.
Yeah, me too. I love the Saints. I love when they're a high-scoring, high-powered offense. But I mean, the reason that they won last night was
I will never forgive the Saints for that hit on Drew Brees or on
Kurt Warner?
Yeah.
Wow,
Sorry.
you holding an old grudge?
Yeah. Sorry.
What if we get Drew one of these days? Will it even the score?
Yeah.
Bounty gate. All right, I'm gonna pass that along. All right, Redskins. They go into New York. They face the Jets. Jets are heavy favorites. Kind of a low over/under in this
Yeah,
game,
that's very low.
Which I understand. Redskins have a pretty solid defense. They like to run the ball. The Jets are the same. So what do we think about this game from a fantasy perspective? What are we doing with this Redskins backfield? Everybody wants to know, do I keep Jones on my bench? Do I keep Morris? Do I keep Thompson? Do I twiddle my thumbs and cry?
That's such a tough call because every week it seems to be different. It's game flow dependent. The only one that you can rely on as far as knowing what their usage is going to be is Thompson, but he hasn't been good enough to be necessarily started week in and week out.
He outsnapped both of them again last week.
Yeah, so and in this matchup this week, I mean, I don't know what you do long term. You try to package them and get something, which is darn near impossible.
Yeah, you can stash. I mean, I think Alf and Jones are good stashes for a bench. If there's an injury, one of them becomes very valuable.
Right.
I would also say the guy to trade them to is the owner of the other player. I mean, if you want to, somebody's probably. If I owned,
would you really take him?
Man,
if
I want to clog your bench with both of them.
Well, if I owned Alf, I'm not talking about me. I would not want to. But there are people out there that are disappointed in Alf who would at least want the backfield or something like that. That would be where I'd pitch it because I don't really want to hold Matt Jones on my bench with other options out there.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just saying for me, there's no way I'm taking both of those guys on my bench.
But so this week you have to sit all the Redskins. I mean, they're going up against the Jets as far as the running
You don't
backs.
start Carrier? Or are you just talking about running
No,
back?
I'm just talking about the running backs.
Oh.
You don't know who it's going to be, and you know whoever it is going to be in a bad matchup. There's just no way that I would want any of them in. On the other side of the ball, at the running back position, Chris Ivory. This is a little bit of a tough matchup, but I see Chris Ivory right now as matchup proof.
He's also – sorry, go ahead.
If he's healthy and if he's playing, he's got to be in your lineup.
Bilal Powell might not play as well, and he only had one touch last game.
Really?
Yeah, he is very questionable to play. I think Bilal Powell sits in this game. And so Ivory's a start, Marshall's a start. What about Eric Decker?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yes. Eric Decker has been great. Eric Decker, like we had talked about, he's a perfect 2. He's a very solid wide receiver. Marshall is attracting all the attention. They have a great run game, which opens everything up for the pass. So I love Decker.
He's also very, very used in the red zone. They run routes for him. They look for him. He's had a lot of targets in the red zone, and so I do think he's a decent
So we're
player.
saying that Ivory, Marshall, and Decker are all start-worthy, and I would start the Jets' defense in this game too. You're at home facing a not high-profile offense. Kirk Cousins tends to make a mistake or two.
Yeah.
No.
What about the tight end position from the Washington side?
I like Carrier a lot.
I'm okay with it, yeah.
He had a touchdown last week?
Yep. It's not a good matchup, so, I would look elsewhere for people of that caliber, but Reed has a really hard time getting back from his injuries, and so I would say Carrier's a good guy long term. Long term meaning multiple weeks, not rest of season.
Now the Cardinals travel across the country. They go to Pittsburgh and they play the Michael Vick led, we assume, Pittsburgh Steelers this week. The Steelers are underdogs by 3.5 points at home, which the way the Cardinals are playing makes sense. But give me the fantasy spin on the quarterback position in this game. Does Palmer an auto start no matter what?
Yes.
Revenge.
Yeah, so
So explain that to the people because they might not understand why you just uttered revenge like a demon.
So Bruce Arians used to be a coach on the Steelers staff, and he felt like he was eligible. Like
Passed over.
yes, passed over several times, and then was basically forced to retire. I don't if people don't remember this. Before he ended up on the Colts and ended up being the interim head coach and getting the head coach job in Arizona, but he was retired forcibly for a small amount of time.
And so you're saying he's going back
This
home.
is the first time he's gone back to Pittsburgh, and there's some thoughts of maybe he wants to
He might want to run it up.
score 75 points.
Okay.
I would.
So I'm scoring 75 points. I'm the Cardinals, and I'm using which running back?
Chris
Johnson.
Okay, so Chris Johnson, you would start him without hesitation this game.
Correct.
Without hesitation.
Would you start Andre Ellington?
No.
Would you start David Johnson?
I would start David Johnson over Andre Ellington, but I would probably not start David Johnson.
I got an email today from a guy who he wrote in. Actually, it was a review on iTunes, an iTunes review for the show, and he said he was really excited about David Johnson, and he went to a bar and he watched the game, and David Johnson ran it in, and he just couldn't help himself, and he sang David Johnson very loudly in the bar, and he said a guy across the bar in the corner of the bar just screamed, "Foot Clan!"
What?
Yes.
Across the bar. So
Yes.
I thought that was
that is
was,
amazing.
We are everywhere.
It was kind of like draft season with the when you show up at your draft and like one other guy's got double stuffed Oreos with him,
Oh,
and you're like,
that's
uh-oh,
an awesome
uh-oh.
story.
I know. It was good, right? All right, so Larry Fitzgerald is very high on the wide receiver rankings right now. I know, the traditional thing with fantasy, especially in week 5, okay, this is make or break for a lot of players. The reason the question about Devontae Freeman, where he finishes, is because we are deciding in a much more real way whether we think things are going to stay the same for players or they're going to drop off, right? A couple weeks ago, it was like, is Forsett going to be a 2? Is he going to be a 3? Okay, well, he kind of came back. C.J. Anderson, is he done? Lamar Miller, what's he going to be? Is Devontae Freeman, do we trade him for a big name like AP? I had to tell somebody this morning, he wrote me in after the game last night. The trade was AP and Moncrief for Freeman and Jeffrey. And I had to say, well, no.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
No.
I mean, because
What a crazy world we live in.
I know the trends. The trends are pretty evident. And so Larry Fitzgerald's another one of those guys who he's struggled for so long to be a fantasy relevant, reliable option that 5 games into the season, we're going, is this a mirage or not? And so Mike, definitively, you probably intercepted some emails based on everything we talked about today. Definitively, is Larry Fitzgerald going to stay where he's at or not? And maybe you're the wrong person to ask because you own him in a bunch of leagues. But go ahead.
I actually only own him in one league, but it's my league of record. And we talked him up so much in the offseason because last year, with a healthy Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald was amazing. His pace was wide receiver 1 numbers. Carson Palmer has been healthy all year. What do we have from Larry Fitzgerald? Top 5 wide receiver numbers. I love Fitzgerald moving forward entire year. As long as Carson's healthy, Fitzgerald will be great.
Do you agree with that, Jason?
I agree 100% across the board. If Palmer is healthy, then Fitz will be good.
It does seem that when you watch the games, we're from Arizona. We're obviously very tied into the team and glued to that screen. It seems like they're really forcing the issue with him in the red zone too, where the touchdown numbers are there. So
maybe Fitzgerald's papa was right, and when they were
yeah.
he was always
getting
saying
his number down.
they were trying to get his numbers down during that contract year, and now that they've already got the contract, he's a Hall of Famer. We should get the ball to Larry. He's really good.
That doesn't hurt. I think having having Carson Palmer helps too.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, we have to discuss this.
Oh man,
because this is brutal. Because he's had 2 games now that are very disappointing with Michael Vick, and the Cardinals are very good against the pass, and Patrick Peterson is very good in one-on-one situations.
Peterson's back.
Yeah.
If you haven't been watching the Cardinals, Peterson is great again.
I
Would
feel
you
the need
sit
to
Antonio Brown?
I feel the need to apologize because earlier in this week, now we haven't nobody has gone forward with that advice because that was still this week, so no mistakes have been made. But we almost mocked the idea of sitting Antonio Brown. But the more you look at this matchup and realize with Vic and with Patrick Peterson, Antonio Brown is definitely somebody that you might have a roster with guys who you would play ahead of him. It's not that you're sitting Antonio Brown because you think he's awful. It's just there are probably, going to be 20 guys that are ahead of him this week. And if you've got 2 or 3 on your roster, you might play him. So
I've got a very difficult question for you.
Okay.
It's a Brown on Brown question.
Oh.
Would you start John Brown over Antonio Brown in this game?
John Brown's kind of right. He's right on that line. For me.
I would probably not be able to.
On
Yeah,
that line. Yeah, exactly. On that line, I would go.
But you'd
Antonio
start
Brown.
Larry Fitzgerald over Brown
for sure.
Let's say you had a roster with another big name wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. He's in your lineup. Your wide receiver 2 needs to be Antonio Brown and Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh, it's Fitzgerald.
Fits for sure.
But how about let's go through some guys here. James Jones.
I'd start Brown.
I would as well.
T.Y. Hilton.
I would start T.Y.
I'd probably start T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, Jarvis PPR. Jarvis Landry.
Jarvis.
I would. Man, I can't even say these. It's so hard to sit a guy. I'd probably start Landry.
All right, this one's a tricky one for you. Kendall Wright.
I would start Kendall Wright.
I would not.
Yeah,
I can't even
What a world.
I'm like I've got a bitter face when I say these things. Do I even believe that? I mean, I probably lied about 3 times because I think when the day came and I'm setting the lineup and clicking the save button, I don't think I could take Antonio out. I would just hope he makes a big play because it does just take 1 or 2 with Antonio Brown, and he's pretty good. So we didn't help you. All right, Panthers going into Seattle to face the Seahawks. I think Carolina wins this game.
Okay.
Is that? Do we need a?
Whoa!
Andy's almost upset of the week.
There it is. While I don't agree that they win, I definitely think it's possible, but I love the Carolina defense as far as fantasy goes. The Seattle offense is not a super high-powered scoring game, and also you got Luke Kuechly back, which maybe he shouldn't be.
Thank goodness he's back.
For fantasy, yes.
Not
for his brain.
Well, for the defense, for the team, for himself. I mean, he wants to play football.
Yeah.
And on
it's
the
nice
opposite,
that he's healthy.
The opposite side of the ball, Bobby Wagner was likely to be out for the Seahawks.
That is monumental.
Which is a huge deal just for the defense as a whole,
It's a huge
especially
deal
for the running defense.
Jonathan Stewart.
Yes.
He sat again, and I think Bobby Wagner will probably be out. So would you be okay flexing Jonathan Stewart?
Yes, I would.
Is there any wide receiver on the Carolina Panthers that you would want to run out there? Somebody's going to have a decision to make. They need a flex guy with bye weeks and things like that. So I'm going to start one, and I'm going to start
none. I would start just.
Well, no, I mean if you had to pick one.
I'm saying in this matchup with Cam Newton, I know what you're saying, but
I will have an empty starter spot before I play.
There are
a Panther
there
wide
are
receiver.
20 wide receivers on the waiver wire I would play over Ted Ginn Jr. this week in Seattle. Bobby Wagner might be out, but their corners are great. Cam Newton is not. I mean, maybe one of them gets in the end zone. I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out that Ted Ginn Jr. gets 2 catches and gets a touchdown. But I'm definitely not starting one of these guys in Seattle.
Mike, which wide receiver would you start if you had to start a Carolina wide receiver?
If you have to fly on one, it's Ted Ginn.
Okay. Marshawn Lynch is expected to be back. We talked to Fred Jackson on Wednesday. We know that Rawls will be relegated to that backup first and second down role, which is fine. I mean, he'll have probably 5 or 6, 7 carries in this game, depending on Lynch's health. Are you fine rolling Lynch out there? It's not the best matchup for him, but he's back in the lineup, right?
And he's at home. So that's where Lynch really puts the touchdowns, generally speaking, is at home.
Yeah. So anything else from this matchup you guys want to discuss?
Greg Olsen is a great play this week, I believe. We saw Cam Chancellor fail epically against the tight end position last week. And Greg Olsen is a high-level tight end.
Yeah, Eifert had a huge game. What about the Jimmy Graham apology tour? I mean, Pete Carroll, Peach Cobbler came out and he said he wanted to get the ball to Graham more. I still have confidence that that's what this offense is going to do.
They can want to do it all day long.
The truth is there's not enough targets in Seattle to go to everybody. It could be Tyler Lockett. It could be Jimmy Graham. It could be Doug Baldwin. but it's not going to be any one of those guys week after week after week. It's just there's just not enough.
You got to
offense
spin
to
the
go
wheel,
around.
the wheel of Seahawks.
Yeah, not exciting. Not an exciting situation. When you do reflect on what happened with Jimmy Graham, penny pinching in New Orleans, and the fact that he always wanted to play with Drew Brees, it's just, you get what you get,
I will
and
say
you
this.
don't throw a fit. That's what I tell my kids.
I say that too. I don't blame Graham at all for getting as much cash as you can. You have a limited lifespan in the league, and you're risking your body and your health. So I don't mind that at all.
Yes, but here's the caveat, and we saw this with Randall Cobb.
Yes.
You aren't necessarily getting the most money if you
Right.
penny pinch. You need to combine your expectations for that next contract too.
You generally can get 2 big contracts.
Randall
if you're
Cobb
a
made
star.
a lot more money by taking less money to stay with
Jimmy Graham's
going to
sign with the New York Knicks next week is what he's going to do.
Yeah, because Cobb can play out his current contract, still be young enough to play, and Green Bay probably won't want him back, and he can still go cash in.
The second contract, he can go sign with the Raiders.
Exactly.